Picture this. It's 3500 BCE. The world is silent except for the whisper of wind across endless desert. No cities pierce the horizon. No written words exist to capture human thoughts. No wheels turn on ancient roads. And then, something extraordinary happens. In the fertile crescent between two mighty rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, the first spark of civilization ignites. Not with fanfare or ceremony, but quietly, like the first star appearing at dusk. This is the story of Mesopotamia, the cradle of everything we call human progress. But this isn't just a history lesson. This is the epic tale of how scattered tribes became mighty empires, how the first cities rose from mud and dreams, how humans first learned to write their stories in stone and clay. It's a story of gods and kings, of love and betrayal, of triumph and devastating loss. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let me take you on a journey through time itself. Close your eyes and imagine walking through streets that existed 5,000 years before Christ was born. Feel the warm sun on ancient brick. Hear the voices of people whose blood runs in your veins today. This is where it all began. This is where we became. Us imagine a world without cities, without writing, without the wheel. It's 10,000 BCE, and our ancestors are wandering nomads, following herds across vast grasslands, sleeping under stars that have witnessed the rise and fall of ice ages. But something is changing. The great ice sheets are retreating, leaving behind rich, fertile soil. Rivers are carving new paths through the landscape, and in one particular region, a crescent of land between two mighty rivers, something magical is about to happen. The people here are different. They've grown tired of the endless wandering, the uncertainty of the hunt. They look at the rich soil by the riverbank and make a decision that will echo through eternity. They decide to stay. At first, it's just a few families building simple mud huts near the water. They plant the first seeds of barley and wheat. They watch with wonder and anxiety as green shoots push through the earth. This is humanity's first great gamble, trusting the earth to provide, betting their survival on seeds and seasons. The experiment works. Crops grow abundantly in the fertile soil. Food becomes plentiful, predictable. For the first time in human history, not everyone needs to spend every moment hunting or gathering food. Some can specialize. One person becomes exceptionally good at making pottery, another at weaving, another at working with copper. And with this specialization comes something unprecedented. Free time to think, to create, to dream. By 8000 BCE, permanent villages dot the landscape between the rivers. The people call this region Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers. They don't know it yet, but they're creating the foundation for everything we call civilization. The year is 3500 BCE. In the southern marshlands of Mesopotamia, something unprecedented is taking shape. A settlement is growing larger than any human community before it. This is Uruk, and it will become the world's first true city. Walking through early Uruk would have been like stepping into humanity's boldest experiment. Narrow streets wind between mud brick houses, each one built by hand, each one a testament to human ambition. The air is thick with smoke from cooking fires and pottery kilns. Children run between the buildings, their laughter echoing off walls that will outlast empires. At the city's heart rises a massive structure unlike anything the world has ever seen. A ziggurat, a stepped temple tower reaching toward the heavens. This is humanity's first skyscraper, built not from steel and glass but from millions of mud bricks, each one shaped by human hands. The priest-king of Uruk stands atop this tower, looking out over his domain. He rules not just a village or a tribe, but thousands of people living together in unprecedented complexity. How do you manage so many souls? How do you keep track of grain stores, trade agreements, tax collections? The answer comes from an unlikely source: accounting. The year is 3200 BCE. In a small room within Uruk's temple complex, a scribe sits hunched over a clay tablet. His stylus, a sharpened reed, makes small wedge-shaped marks in the wet clay. He's not creating art or poetry, he's recording grain inventories. But in doing so, he's making history. This is the birth of writing. At first it's simple. A pictogram of a barley stalk means barley. A drawing of an ox means cattle. But human ingenuity doesn't stop there. Soon these symbols begin to represent not just objects, but sounds, ideas, concepts that exist only in the mind. The very first written sentence in human history might have been something mundane. 37 bushels of barley delivered to the temple. But oh, what power lay hidden in those simple marks. For the first time, human thoughts could outlive human lives. Knowledge could be preserved, passed down, built upon. Within centuries, Writing transforms from a counting tool to something magnificent. The first literature emerges. Epic poems, love songs, legal codes. The Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity's first great story, begins to take shape in these wedge-shaped symbols we call cuneiform. But writing brings more than just record-keeping. It brings identity. For the first time, people can say not just I am, but I was here. I existed. Remember me. By 3000 BCE, the land of Sumer boasts dozens of city-states, each ruled by a king who claims divine authority. These are not mere mortals, according to their own propaganda. They are chosen by the gods, intermediaries between heaven and earth. In the city of Ur, King Mesopotamia sits upon his throne, adorned in gold and lapis lazuli. His palace is a marvel of ancient engineering. Courtyards cooled by ingenious ventilation systems. Walls decorated with intricate mosaics depicting gods and heroes. But being a god-king is not all luxury and worship. These rulers face constant challenges, rival cities, natural disasters, the complex politics of managing thousands of subjects. They must be military leaders, chief priests, judges, and economic managers all at once. The Sumerian king list tells us that some rulers reigned for impossibly long periods. One king supposedly ruled for 36,000 years. These numbers are mythical, of course, but they reveal something profound about how these ancient people viewed authority. Kings weren't just political leaders. They were cosmic figures, bridges between the mortal and divine realms. In the royal cemetery of Ur, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of elaborate burial customs. When a king died, dozens of servants were buried alive with him, dressed in their finest clothes, apparently going willingly to serve their master in the afterlife. The dedication required for such sacrifice speaks to the absolute power these god-kings wielded over their subjects' hearts and minds. Every civilization has its flood story, but in Mesopotamia, the memory runs especially deep. Around 2900 BCE, a catastrophic flood devastates the region. Rivers overflow their banks, cities disappear under churning waters, entire populations flee to higher ground. In the city of Uruk, a man named Utnapishtim receives a warning from the god Ea. Build a boat. Save yourself and your family. The gods have decided to cleanse the world with water. Sound familiar? This story, preserved in cuneiform tablets, predates the biblical account of Noah by over 1,000 years. But this isn't just mythology. Geological evidence confirms that massive floods periodically devastated Mesopotamia, leaving such deep impressions on human memory that they became the stuff of legend. The flood story reveals something crucial about the Mesopotamian worldview. Humans exist at the mercy of capricious gods. Natural disasters can strike without warning, and survival depends on wisdom, preparation, and divine favor. But it also reveals human resilience. After the waters recede, the cities rebuild. Better walls, elevated foundations, improved drainage systems. Each disaster becomes a lesson, each challenge a stepping stone to greater sophistication. Around 2700 BCE, in the city of Uruk, there rules a king whose name will echo through eternity, Gilgamesh. 2/3 divine, 1/3 human, he is the world's first literary hero, and his story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, becomes humanity's earliest masterpiece. But who was the real Gilgamesh? Historical records suggest he was indeed a king of Uruk, a powerful ruler who strengthened the city's walls and expanded its influence. But legend transforms him into something far grander. The epic tells us that Gilgamesh was a tyrant, so oppressive that his people prayed to the gods for relief. The gods respond by creating Enkidu, a wild man raised by animals, to challenge the king. When they first meet, they fight like titans, destroying buildings and shaking the earth. But their battle ends not in victory for either, but in the recognition of equals. They become the closest of friends. Together, they embark on adventures that take them to cedar forests guarded by demons, to the underworld itself. But their greatest adventure is the most human one, the search for immortality. When Enkidu dies, Gilgamesh is devastated. For the first time in literature, we see a hero not conquering death but confronting it, fearing it, raging against it. His grief is so profound that he abandons his kingdom to search for eternal life. "Must I die too?" he cries. "Must I lie down like Enkidu and never rise again?" He finds Utnapishtim, the flood survivor, who tells him of a plant that grants immortality. Gilgamesh retrieves it from the ocean floor, only to have it stolen by a serpent while he sleeps. The message is clear. Death comes to all, even heroes, even kings. But Gilgamesh finds a different kind of immortality, in friendship. In achievement in the walls he built that still stand, in the story that still moves us 4,500 years later. The year is 2334 BCE. In the northern city of Akkad, a man with humble origins is about to change the world forever. His name is Sargon, and he will build the first true empire in human history. Sargon's origin story reads like a fairy tale. According to legend, he was born to a temple priestess who couldn't acknowledge her child. She placed him in a basket and set it adrift on the river, where he was found and raised by a gardener. The gardener taught him to tend plants, but the goddess Ishtar had greater plans for this foundling. Rising from obscurity to become cupbearer to the king of Kish, Sargon eventually overthrows his master and begins his remarkable conquest. One by one, the proud city-states of Sumer fall to his disciplined armies. For the first time in history, the entire region comes under single rule. But Sargon doesn't stop there. His armies march east to the Iranian plateau, west to the Mediterranean, north to Anatolia. For the first time, a single man rules territory stretching across multiple modern countries. This is empire on a scale never before imagined. What made Sargon different from the city kings who came before? He understood something they didn't: the power of unified administration. Instead of simply conquering and looting, he creates systems to govern his vast territories. He places governors in distant cities, establishes trade routes, creates the world's first postal system. His empire lasts for over a century, and when it finally falls, it establishes a template that will be copied by every great empire that follows. Romans, Persians, Mongols, British, all trace their imperial DNA back to Sargon of Akkad, Babylon, 1750 BCE. In the center of the city, a massive black stone pillar rises nearly 8 feet high. Carved into its surface are 282 laws, the most complete legal code the world has yet seen. This is the Code of Hammurabi, and it represents humanity's first serious attempt to create justice through written law. King Hammurabi stands before his masterwork, dictating to scribes who will carry copies throughout his empire. He has spent years perfecting these laws, consulting with judges, priests, and merchants to create a comprehensive system of justice. If a man steals a sheep, he shall pay 10 sheep, the king declares. If he cannot pay, he shall be put to death. The code is harsh by modern standards, filled with death penalties and the famous eye for an eye principle. But for its time, it represents revolutionary progress. For the first time, justice isn't arbitrary, dependent on the whims of local rulers or the wealth to hire advocates. The law is written down, publicly displayed, equally applicable to all. Well, almost all. The code creates different standards of justice for different social classes. The punishment for harming a noble is more severe than for harming a commoner. But even this represents progress. At least the distinctions are made explicit rather than hidden. Perhaps most remarkably, the code protects the rights of women and children in ways that won't be seen again for millennia. Divorced women have the right to their property. Children cannot be punished for their parents' debts. Merchants who cheat customers face severe penalties. Standing before his stone monument, Hammurabi makes a proclamation that will echo through history. Let any oppressed man who has a lawsuit come before the statue of me, the King of Justice, and let him have my written words read aloud to him. This is the birth of the rule of law, the radical idea that even kings are subject to written principles of justice. The year is 883 BCE. From the northern city of Nineveh, a new power is rising that will make all previous empires seem gentle by comparison. The Assyrians have perfected the art of war, and they're about to unleash it upon the known world. King Ashur-nasir-pal II stands atop the walls of his capital, surveying his military innovations. His armies are the first to use iron weapons extensively, giving them a decisive advantage over bronze-armed enemies. His war chariots are marvels of engineering, faster and more maneuverable than anything seen before. His siege engines can breach walls that have stood for centuries. But the Assyrians' greatest weapon isn't technological, it's psychological. They have perfected the art of terror as a tool of statecraft. I flayed their chieftains and covered the walls of their cities with their skins, Ashur-nasir-pal records matter-of-factly. I impaled many within sight of their walls. From some I cut off their arms and hands, from others their noses and ears. These aren't the boasts of a madman, but calculated policy. The Assyrians understand that reputation for brutality can be more effective than actual warfare. Cities surrender at the mere approach of Assyrian armies, rather than face the consequences of resistance. Yet the Assyrians are more than just conquerors. They're administrators of genius, creating the most efficient government the ancient world has yet seen. Their empire stretches from Egypt to Iran, and they manage it through a sophisticated system of governors, spies, and rapid communication. King Sargon II builds a new capital at Dur-Sharrukin, a planned city that showcases Assyrian power and sophistication. Its palace walls are decorated with magnificent reliefs, showing the king hunting lions, leading armies, receiving tribute from conquered peoples. These aren't just decorations, they're propaganda, designed to inspire awe and submission. Babylon, 605 BCE. King Nebuchadnezzar II has built the most beautiful city in the world. But his greatest creation isn't a palace or temple. It's a garden that seems to defy the very laws of nature. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon rise in terraces above the dusty city, a green miracle in the heart of Mesopotamia's arid landscape. Water flows mysteriously upward through an ingenious system of pumps and channels, nourishing exotic plants from across the known world. Legend says Nebuchadnezzar built the gardens for his wife, Amytis, who missed the green hills of her homeland in Media. Whether this romantic story is true or not, the gardens represent the pinnacle of ancient engineering and artistic vision. Visitors from across the ancient world come to marvel at this wonder. Greek historians describe walking through multiple levels of gardens, each more beautiful than the last. Palm trees provide shade for delicate flowers. Fruit trees hang heavy with dates and pomegranates. The air is perfumed with jasmine and rose. But the gardens are more than just beautiful. They're a statement of power. Only an empire at the height of its wealth and sophistication could afford to transport soil from distant lands, to build irrigation systems of such complexity, to maintain gardens that require constant care by dozens of gardeners. Standing in his aerial paradise, Nebuchadnezzar can see his entire capital spread below him. Babylon in his time is the largest city in the world, home to over 200,000 people. Its walls are so thick that chariot races are held on top of them. The great ziggurat known as Etemenanki, the inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel, rises 300 feet above the city. This is humanity's first megacity, and the Hanging Gardens are its crown jewel. Babylon, 539 BCE. In a den beneath the palace, a man sits calmly among lions that should tear him apart. His name is Daniel, and his story illuminates the human cost of imperial power. Daniel was a young noble in Jerusalem when Nebuchadnezzar conquered the city and carried off its best and brightest to serve in his court. For decades, Daniel has served Babylonian kings faithfully, rising to become one of the empire's highest officials despite his foreign birth and strange religion. But now he faces a crisis of conscience. The new king, Darius the Mede, has issued a decree that for 30 days, no one may pray to any god except the king himself. For most people, this is mere politics, temporary inconvenience in service of royal ego. For Daniel, it's impossible. 3 times a day, as he has for decades, Daniel opens his window facing Jerusalem and prays to the God of his fathers. He knows the consequences, but some things matter more than safety. His enemies, palace officials jealous of his influence, report him to the king. Darius is trapped by his own law. Even though he respects Daniel, even though he recognizes this as a political setup, he cannot appear weak by making exceptions. Your God, whom you serve continually, will deliver you, the king tells Daniel as they seal him in the lion's den. When dawn comes, Darius rushes to the den. Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to deliver you from the lions? Daniel's voice echoes from the pit. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me. Whether you read this story as literal truth or profound metaphor, its message resonates across millennia. Some convictions are worth dying for, and sometimes faith provides strength that defies all earthly power. October 539 BCE. The gates of Babylon open without a battle, and a new kind of conqueror enters the city. Cyrus of Persia comes not as destroyer but as liberator, and he will revolutionize the very concept of empire. Unlike the Assyrians who ruled through terror, or the Babylonians who imposed their culture on conquered peoples, Cyrus offers something unprecedented: freedom to maintain local customs, religions, and laws under Persian protection. His first act upon entering Babylon shocks the ancient world. He issues a decree freeing all captive peoples and allowing them to return to their homelands. The Jews, exiled for decades, weep with joy as they prepare to rebuild Jerusalem. Other peoples, torn from their ancestral homes by previous conquerors, pack their belongings for journeys they never dared hope they'd make. The cylinder seal recording this decree, sometimes called the First Charter of Human Rights, proclaims Cyrus's revolutionary philosophy. I gathered all their inhabitants and returned them to their homes. And the gods of Sumer and Akkad which Nabonidus had brought into Babylon, I restored to their sacred centers. But this isn't just kindness, it's brilliant statecraft. By allowing peoples to maintain their identities while owing allegiance to Persia, Cyrus creates a more stable and prosperous empire than any before it. Local elites become partners rather than enemies. Religious leaders pray for Persian success rather than plotting rebellion. Standing in Babylon's throne room, Cyrus holds in his hands the future of the ancient world. Within decades, his empire will stretch from India to Greece, the largest the world has yet seen. But unlike the empires that came before, this one will endure not through fear, but through what we might recognize as the first experiment in multiculturalism, Gilgamesh. 331 BCE, on a dusty plain in northern Mesopotamia, two armies face each other across a gap that represents not just military rivalry, but the collision of entire civilizations. On one side stands Darius III, last great king of the Persian Empire that has dominated the region for 2 centuries. His army is vast, over 100,000 men including armored cavalry, war elephants, and scythed chariots. This is the accumulated military might of the ancient world's greatest empire. On the other side, a young Macedonian king named Alexander leads 47,000 Greek and allied troops. He's already conquered Asia Minor and Egypt. Now he's come for the heartland of Persian power, and he's brought with him a new way of war. The battle that follows will be remembered as one of the most decisive in history. Alexander's phalanx, rows of soldiers with 18-foot spears, proves superior to Persian mobility. His cavalry, led by the king himself, smashes through enemy lines. By sunset, the Persian army is in full retreat, and Darius III is fleeing for his life. But Alexander's victory represents more than military conquest. It marks the end of ancient Mesopotamian independence. For 3,000 years, the land between the rivers has been the center of Near Eastern civilization. Its cities have given birth to writing, law, literature, and empire. Its kings have called themselves rulers of the world. Now, for the first time, the region falls under European control. Greek becomes the language of administration. Greek gods share temples with ancient Mesopotamian deities. The great cities, Babylon, Uruk, become provincial towns in a vast Hellenic empire. Standing in conquered Babylon, Alexander shows his respect for ancient traditions by ordering repairs to its temples and participating in its religious ceremonies. But the gesture, however sincere, cannot disguise the fundamental shift. The age of Mesopotamian dominance is over. Ctesiphon, 53 BCE. In the desert near the ancient city of Babylon, an extraordinary battle is about to unfold that will shatter Roman confidence and restore Persian pride. Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of Rome's richest and most ambitious men, has invaded Mesopotamia with 7 legions, 42,000 of Rome's finest soldiers. He dreams of conquest to rival Caesar's victories in Gaul or Pompey's in the east. He has chosen what seems an easy target, the Parthian Empire, ruled by descendants of nomadic horsemen. What Crassus doesn't understand is that the Parthians have revolutionized cavalry warfare. Their army consists almost entirely of mounted archers, whose mobility and firepower will prove devastating against Roman infantry tactics, unchanged for centuries. At the Battle of Carrhae, the Roman legions find themselves surrounded by swirling clouds of Parthian horsemen. Wave after wave of arrows darken the sky. The Romans form their traditional testudo formation, shields locked together like turtle shells. But the Parthians simply ride away and return when the Romans try to advance. The barbarians will run out of arrows soon, Roman officers tell their men. But Parthian supply lines stretch back to warehouses in Babylon, and the arrows keep coming. By day's end, 20,000 Romans lie dead in the desert sand. Another 10,000 are captured. Crassus himself is killed during a failed negotiation, his head reportedly filled with molten gold by mocking Parthian nobles. The victory reverberates across the ancient world. Rome, seemingly invincible, has suffered one of its worst defeats ever. The Parthians have proven that Mesopotamia's martial spirit is far from dead. For the next 3 centuries, the Parthian Empire will control Mesopotamia, reviving Persian traditions while adapting to Hellenistic influences. Babylon becomes great again, its scholars translating Greek philosophy into Aramaic and Persian. The old gods receive new temples. Ancient cuneiform writing, dormant for centuries, experiences a brief revival. Ctesiphon, 531 CE. In the most magnificent palace the ancient world has ever seen, Khosrow I sits on the throne of the Sasanian Empire, the last great Persian dynasty to rule Mesopotamia. Known as Anushiravan, of immortal soul, Khosrow has transformed his empire into a center of learning and culture that rivals Constantinople and surpasses Rome. His palace is a marvel of engineering and artistry, its great arch stretching 100 feet across, its walls decorated with silk tapestries and precious metals. But Khosrow's greatest achievement isn't architectural, it's intellectual. He has established the Academy of Jundi Shapur, the greatest center of learning in the ancient world. Here, scholars from India, China, Greece, and Persia work together, translating texts, conducting experiments, advancing human knowledge. When Plato's academy in Athens is closed by Christian zealots, its philosophers find refuge in Khosrow's court. Indian mathematicians teach the revolutionary concept of zero. Chinese astronomers share their observations of the heavens. Medical texts from across the known world are collected, translated, and improved upon. Walking through the academy's halls, one might encounter scholars debating Aristotle in Persian, doctors performing surgery with techniques learned from Indian masters, astronomers using Chinese instruments to map the movements of planets. This is globalization in the ancient world, the free exchange of ideas across cultural boundaries. But Khosrow faces challenges his predecessors never imagined. To the west, the Byzantine Empire grows stronger under Justinian. To the east, Turkish nomads threaten the trade routes that fund his empire. And from the south, a new force is stirring. Arab tribes united under a new religion called Islam. The Sasanians have ruled Mesopotamia for over 400 years, maintaining Persian traditions while embracing innovations from across the known world. They don't know it yet, but their time is running out. The last act of the ancient world is about to begin. Qadisiyah, 636 CE. On a battlefield near the ruins of ancient Babylon, two worlds are about to collide. The Arab-Muslim army of Khalid ibn al-Walid faces the mighty host of Sasanian Persia, and the outcome will determine the fate of Mesopotamia for the next 1,000 years. The Muslim forces are vastly outnumbered. The Persian army includes armored cavalry, war elephants, and the legendary immortals, elite guards whose units are always maintained at exactly 10,000 men. But the Arabs have something their enemies lack: absolute conviction and revolutionary military tactics. As dawn breaks over the ancient battlefield, Muslim soldiers perform their morning prayers while Persian fire priests kindle sacred flames. Two civilizations, two religions, two ways of life prepare for a conflict that will echo through eternity. The battle rages for 4 days. Persian war elephants, terrifying to horses, initially scatter the Arab cavalry, but the Muslims adapt quickly, using tactics learned in their conquest of Syria and Egypt. They target the elephants' drivers, turning the massive beasts into chaos within Persian ranks. On the 4th day, a sandstorm rises from the desert. The Arabs, accustomed to such conditions, press their advantage while the Persians struggle to see. By evening, the Sasanian army is in full retreat, and with it dies the last native Persian dynasty to rule Mesopotamia. But this conquest is different from those that came before. The Muslims don't come as destroyers of civilization, but as its inheritors and continuators. They recognize the value of Mesopotamian scholarship and actively preserve it. In Baghdad, founded in 762 CE near the ruins of ancient Babylon, the Abbasid caliphs established the House of Wisdom, a great library and translation center where Arabic scholars preserve and expand upon millennia of Mesopotamian learning. Greek philosophy, Persian medicine, Indian mathematics, and Chinese technology are all translated into Arabic and integrated into a new synthesis. Baghdad, 786 CE. The Caliph Harun al-Rashid walks through his capital, the round city of peace, marveling at what has risen from the ancient soil of Mesopotamia. In barely a century, this planned city has become the largest in the world, home to over 1 million people. The city's design reflects Islamic ideals of perfection and order. Built in a perfect circle with the Caliph's palace at the center, it embodies the Islamic concept of the world with Mecca as its spiritual center. 3 concentric walls protect it from enemies, while 4 gates open to the 4 corners of the world. But Baghdad is more than just a political capital. It's the intellectual heart of the Islamic world. In the House of Wisdom, scholars work by candlelight translating and preserving the knowledge of ages. Hunayn ibn Ishaq, the greatest translator of his era, renders Greek medical and philosophical texts into Arabic. Persian administrative manuals guide the governance of a vast empire. Indian numerals revolutionize mathematics. The city's markets bustle with merchants from India, China, Africa, and Europe. Silk from China mingles with spices from India, ivory from Africa, and amber from the Baltic. The ancient trade routes that once enriched Babylon now flow through Baghdad, making it the wealthiest city in the world. Harun al-Rashid himself embodies this cosmopolitan spirit. He corresponds with Charlemagne in distant France, sending him an elephant and a mechanical clock that amazes European courts. He patronizes poets and scholars, including the legendary storytellers who create the tales we know as the Arabian Nights. Walking through Baghdad's streets, the caliph passes houses where scholars debate the nature of God and the movement of planets, workshops where artisans create intricate geometric patterns in metal and ceramic, schools where children from across the empire learn Arabic and Islamic law, alongside mathematics and medicine. This is the ancient world's final golden age, a brilliant synthesis of all the civilizations that have flourished in Mesopotamia, unified under the banner of Islam and the Arabic language. Baghdad, February 1258 CE, the impossible is happening. For 5 centuries, Baghdad has been the center of the Islamic world, its walls thought impregnable, its army invincible. Now Mongol catapults hurl stones and fire into the round city of peace, and the end of an era approaches with terrifying speed. Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, has brought 120,000 warriors to the gates of Baghdad. The Caliph al-Mustasim, last of the Abbasids, had dismissed early reports of the Mongol advance. "How can these barbarians threaten the city of peace?" he had asked. God himself protects Baghdad, but God, it seems, has other plans. The siege lasts only 12 days. When the walls are breached, Mongol warriors pour into streets that have known only prosperity and learning. The House of Wisdom, repository of human knowledge accumulated over millennia, burns as soldiers use precious manuscripts as kindling. The Tigris River runs black with ink from the countless books thrown into its waters, then red with the blood of Baghdad's scholars. Contemporary accounts, probably exaggerated but horrifying nonetheless, claim that 200,000 people die in the sack of Baghdad. The caliph himself is executed in a particularly symbolic way, wrapped in a carpet and trampled by horses, so that no Mongol warrior has to spill royal blood directly. But the Mongol destruction goes beyond mere military conquest. They destroy the ancient irrigation systems that have made Mesopotamia fertile for over 4 millennia. Canals are filled with rubble, irrigation channels destroyed, the delicate balance between human engineering and natural forces shattered. Within a generation, much of Mesopotamia returns to desert. Cities that have stood for thousands of years are abandoned. The land that gave birth to civilization becomes a sparsely populated backwater, and will remain so for centuries. Standing in the ruins of Baghdad, Hulagu Khan surveys his conquest. He has achieved what no previous conqueror managed, not just the defeat of an enemy, but the apparent end of Mesopotamian civilization itself. Baghdad, 1534 CE. Nearly 3 centuries after the Mongol catastrophe, life stirs again in the ancient land between the rivers. Sultan Suleiman, the Magnificent of the Ottoman Empire, has reclaimed Baghdad, and with it, Mesopotamia begins its slow resurrection. The city that greets Ottoman administrators is a shadow of its former glory. Where once 1 million people lived and worked, perhaps 30,000 now scratch out an existence among crumbling walls and silted canals. The great libraries are gone, the schools closed, the irrigation systems that sustained civilization for millennia lying in ruins. But the Ottomans bring more than military conquest. They bring administrative genius and engineering skill. Ottoman engineers begin the massive task of rebuilding the irrigation systems. Skilled craftsmen arrive from Constantinople and Aleppo to restore the city's infrastructure. New mosques rise on the foundations of destroyed ones, their minarets once again calling the faithful to prayer. Pasha Suleiman, the Ottoman governor, stands on the banks of the Tigris, watching workers dredge centuries of accumulated silt from the ancient waterway. This river has seen the rise and fall of empires, he reflects. Perhaps it will see another rise. The revival is slow but steady. Trade routes that bypassed the ruined region for centuries begin to return. Caravans from India and Persia once again make Baghdad a stopping point. The city's famous markets, empty for generations, echo again with the calls of merchants and the bustle of commerce. Under Ottoman rule, Mesopotamia becomes a province in the world's most powerful empire. While it never again achieves its former prominence as a center of learning and culture, it finds stability and modest prosperity. The ancient cities, Babylon, Uruk, remain buried under sand and memory, but new towns rise along the rivers, their inhabitants carrying on traditions that stretch back to the dawn of civilization. Khorsabad, Ferrusine, French archaeologist Paul-Émile Botta strikes his spade against something hard beneath the desert sand. When he brushes away the dirt, he gasps in wonder. Staring back at him is the face of an Assyrian king carved 2,500 years ago, as perfectly preserved as if it were made yesterday. This is the beginning of modern archaeology in Mesopotamia, and with it, the resurrection of civilizations lost to memory. For over 1,000 years, the great cities of ancient Mesopotamia have lain buried beneath accumulated sand and debris. Local people know them only as tells, mysterious hills scattered across the landscape, sometimes yielding ancient bricks or pottery shards. But to 19th century European explorers, these tells represent the possibility of recovering history itself. Following Botta's discoveries, archaeologists from Britain, France, Germany, and America descend upon Mesopotamia like a scholarly gold rush. Austin Henry Layard uncovers the great palace of Sennacherib at Nineveh, with its magnificent reliefs showing royal lion hunts and military campaigns. German teams under Robert Koldewey excavate Babylon, revealing the foundations of Nebuchadnezzar's Hanging Gardens and the Great Ishtar Gate. But the most dramatic discoveries come from the royal cemetery at Uruk, excavated by Leonard Woolley in the 1920s. Here, beneath layers of flood silt, Woolley uncovers evidence of the Great Flood described in Mesopotamian literature. More spectacular still, he finds the intact tomb of Queen Puabi, buried with a retinue of servants and surrounded by treasures of gold and lapis lazuli. As Woolley carefully brushes sand from Puabi's golden headdress, he feels the weight of history in his hands. This woman lived 4,500 years ago, yet her jewelry, her makeup, even her expression seem almost contemporary. The gulf of millennia collapses in a moment of human connection across time. Each excavation reveals new wonders: the world's first written laws, the earliest epic literature, evidence of advanced mathematics and astronomy, proof of international trade networks spanning continents. The cradle of civilization begins to reveal its secrets, and the world marvels at how much modern life owes to these ancient pioneers. Baghdad, 1921 CE. In the same city where caliphs once ruled an empire stretching from Spain to India, a new kind of leader takes power. Faisal becomes king of newly created Iraq, and the ancient land of Mesopotamia enters the modern age. The transformation is dramatic and sometimes jarring. Where Bedouin caravans once crossed the desert, oil derricks now pierce the sky. The black gold beneath Iraq's soil will make it one of the world's wealthiest nations, and one of its most contested. King Faisal, a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad who fought alongside Lawrence of Arabia, faces the challenge of welding together diverse populations into a modern nation. Shia and Sunni Muslims, Christians and Jews, Arabs and Kurds, urban intellectuals and tribal chiefs, all must somehow find common ground in the new Iraq. The task is complicated by the region's immense strategic importance. British, French, Russian, and American interests all compete for influence over Mesopotamian oil. The ancient land that gave birth to civilization finds itself once again at the center of great power rivalries. But there are moments of genuine progress and hope. Baghdad University rises near the ruins of the ancient House of Wisdom, once again making the city a center of learning. Iraqi intellectuals and artists create a modern culture that honors ancient traditions while embracing contemporary ideas. The Iraq Museum showcases treasures from Mesopotamian civilizations for the first time in their homeland. In 1958, young army officers overthrow the monarchy in a revolution that promises to restore Iraq's ancient glory. "We are the heirs of Sumer and Babylon," proclaims the new republic's first leader. "We will make Iraq great again." The revolution sets off decades of political upheaval, coups, wars, international interventions that echo the ancient pattern of Mesopotamian history. Periods of greatness interrupted by conquest and chaos, followed by eventual renewal. Babylon, 1987 CE. On the ruins of Nebuchadnezzar's palace, a new king is building his own monument to immortality. Saddam Hussein, president of Iraq, has launched the most ambitious archaeological reconstruction project in modern history. Using millions of bricks inscribed with his own name alongside Nebuchadnezzar's, Saddam rebuilds sections of ancient Babylon. The Ishtar Gate rises again, though now made of modern materials and tourist-friendly walkways. A new palace, clearly inspired by ancient Mesopotamian architecture, provides Saddam with a residence worthy of the kings he claims as predecessors. "I am walking in the footsteps of Nebuchadnezzar," Saddam declares at the dedication ceremony. Iraq will again be the center of world civilization. The grandiosity might seem absurd, but it reflects something deeper in the Iraqi psyche: a desire to reconnect with the glorious past, to reclaim the status that ancient Mesopotamia once held in world affairs. Under Saddam's patronage, Iraqi archaeology flourishes despite international sanctions. Iraqi archaeologists, denied access to Western academic networks, develop their own methodologies and make remarkable discoveries. The Iraq Museum in Baghdad becomes one of the world's finest archaeological institutions, housing treasures spanning 5 millennia of human civilization. But Saddam's ambitions extend beyond archaeology to modern empire building. His wars with Iran and Kuwait drain the nation's resources and invite international intervention. The very oil wealth that could have made Iraq prosperous becomes a curse, attracting foreign involvement and fueling internal conflict. Ancient Mesopotamian kings often claimed divine sanction for their rule, and Saddam follows this pattern, surrounding himself with religious imagery while brutally suppressing any opposition. Like his ancient predecessors, he discovers that ruling Mesopotamia requires managing not just internal diversity, but external pressures from great powers seeking to control the region's resources. Baghdad, April 2003, CE. As American tanks roll through the streets of Baghdad and Saddam Hussein's government collapses, something tragic and irreplaceable is happening at the Iraq Museum. In the chaos following the invasion, looters break into the world's greatest collection of Mesopotamian antiquities. Priceless artifacts, cuneiform tablets, Sumerian sculptures, Babylonian jewelry, are stolen, smashed, or sold on the international black market. In a matter of days, Iraq loses more archaeological treasures than most countries possess. Dr. Donnie George, the museum's director, walks through halls now stripped bare of their treasures, his footsteps echoing in rooms that once housed 5,000 years of human achievement. "They have stolen our history," he says, tears streaming down his face. "They have robbed the world of its heritage." The destruction extends beyond museums. Archaeological sites across Iraq become targets for organized looting. Ur, where Abraham was supposedly born, is pockmarked with illegal excavations. Babylon, rebuilt by Saddam and damaged by bombs, serves as a military base where ancient bricks are crushed under tank treads. But even in the darkest moments, the human spirit that created Mesopotamian civilization endures. Iraqi archaeologists risk their lives to save what they can. International scholars work to recover stolen artifacts. Slowly, painstakingly, pieces of the past are returned to their homeland. The Iraq Museum eventually reopens, though with greatly diminished collections. New discoveries continue. In 2009, archaeologists working near ancient Girsu uncover administrative archives that shed new light on Sumerian bureaucracy. Each find reminds the world that Mesopotamia's contributions to human civilization are far from fully understood. Mosul, 214 CE. In the museum that houses artifacts from ancient Assyrian capitals, masked men attack stone sculptures with sledgehammers. These are fighters from ISIS, the Islamic State, and they're systematically destroying art that has survived for nearly 3 millennia. "These statues are idols that must be destroyed," declares an ISIS leader, as his followers smash a statue of a Lamassu, the human-headed winged bull that once guarded Assyrian palaces. The statue, which survived the fall of Assyria, Persian conquest, Greek rule, Arab conquest, Mongol destruction, and Ottoman rule, dies under the blows of religious extremists in the 21st century. The destruction extends far beyond museums. At Nimrud, ISIS uses bulldozers and explosives to destroy archaeological sites that have been continuously excavated since the 19th century. At Hatra, a perfectly preserved Roman-era city, they demolish temples and sculptures. At Palmyra, in neighboring Syria, they destroy the Temple of Bel and behead the archaeologist who devoted his life to preserving it. The world watches in horror, but the destruction serves ISIS's purpose. They seek to erase not just physical monuments, but historical memory itself. If there was no great civilization before Islam, if the pre-Islamic world was nothing but ignorance and idolatry, then their claim to represent a pure return to ancient values becomes more plausible. But their actions have the opposite effect. International outrage galvanizes efforts to preserve and document Mesopotamian heritage. Digital archaeology projects create detailed 3D models of threatened sites. Museums worldwide pledge resources to protect Iraqi antiquities. Young Iraqis, seeing their heritage under attack, develop new appreciation for their ancient roots. In the rubble left by ISIS, Iraqi and international teams begin the patient work of reconstruction. Some destruction is irreversible. Unique sculptures reduced to dust, archaeological context destroyed forever. But much survives, and the determination to preserve and understand Mesopotamian civilization burns stronger than ever. Baghdad. Source in a laboratory at Baghdad University. Dr. Lamia Al-Gailani Ware watches a 3D printer slowly recreate a Sumerian sculpture destroyed by ISIS. Layer by layer, plastic filament builds up to form the image of an ancient king who ruled 4,000 years ago. This is the new face of archaeology, digital techniques that allow scholars to preserve, analyze, and even resurrect the past in ways previous generations could never imagine. High above the Iraqi desert, drones equipped with ground-penetrating radar map buried cities without disturbing a grain of sand. Satellite imagery reveals ancient canals and field systems invisible from ground level. Computer algorithms analyze cuneiform tablets, translating texts that have been unreadable for millennia. At the Mosul Cultural Museum, international teams use fragments and digital models to rebuild exhibits destroyed by ISIS. The famous Lamassu, smashed beyond repair, returns to life in virtual reality displays that allow visitors to walk around it, examine its details, even see it in its original context guarding an Assyrian palace. But the most exciting developments happen in translation and interpretation. Machine learning algorithms trained on hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets begin to reveal new patterns in ancient texts. Administrative records from Sumerian temples yield insights into ancient economics. Royal correspondence illuminates diplomatic relationships. Love poems written on clay 4,000 years ago speak across millennia to human hearts unchanged by time. Dr. Al-Gailani Ware, herself a descendant of the ancient peoples who created these treasures, represents the continuity between past and present. We are not just studying dead civilizations, she explains to her students. We are learning about ourselves, where we came from, how we developed, what makes us human. In her laboratory, surrounded by both ancient artifacts and cutting-edge technology, she embodies the eternal human drive to understand and preserve the past while building the future. Baghdad, 2024 CE. In a school built on the site where ancient scribes once learned cuneiform, Iraqi children study mathematics using numerals invented by their ancestors. They learn about democracy while sitting above ruins of the world's first law codes. They dream of the future while living atop the deepest layers of human history. Modern Iraq struggles with many of the same challenges that faced ancient Mesopotamian kingdoms, managing diverse ethnic and religious populations, balancing local autonomy with central authority, dealing with interference from neighboring powers, maintaining irrigation systems in an arid climate. But there are reasons for hope. Oil wealth, properly managed, could fund the kind of cultural flowering that Baghdad once knew. Young Iraqis, educated and connected to the global internet, are rediscovering and celebrating their ancient heritage while building modern institutions. At the University of Baghdad, archaeology students work with international teams to excavate sites untouched since ancient times. Each dig reveals new aspects of humanity's first civilization. Evidence of ancient astronomers tracking celestial movements, records of international trade networks, proof of sophisticated urban planning. The Iraq Museum, rebuilt after wartime looting, once again displays treasures that tell the story of human progress from hunter-gatherers to city dwellers. School children press their faces against glass cases containing clay tablets that record humanity's first written thoughts. In the modern city of Nasiriyah, built near ancient Ur, a new museum celebrates the Sumerian heritage. Local guides, many of them descendants of ancient Mesopotamians, tell visitors stories passed down through generations about the kings and gods who once walked this land. The great rivers still flow, the Tigris and Euphrates that witnessed the rise of civilization. Their waters, channeled through modern irrigation systems built on ancient principles, still sustain crops in the desert. The date palms that fed Sumerian cities still bear fruit. The sun that watched over Hammurabi and Nebuchadnezzar still rises over the same horizon. To water up river channels, contaminating freshwater supplies and ruining agricultural land. The same environmental pressures that challenged ancient kingdoms now threaten modern Iraq. But the ancestors have left lessons. Ancient irrigation techniques, refined over millennia, offer insights for modern water conservation. Archaeological evidence of how ancient cities adapted to climate variations provides models for contemporary urban planning. Traditional crop varieties preserved in remote areas prove more resilient to heat and drought than modern hybrid plants. Dr. Najla Al-Hadithi, Iraq's leading environmental historian, studies ancient texts for clues about past environmental management. The Sumerians faced droughts, floods, and soil salinization, she explains. Their solutions, crop rotation, fallow periods, community water management, are more relevant today than ever. In the Mesopotamian marshlands, home to the marsh Arabs whose lifestyle echoes ancient traditions, modern conservation efforts draw on traditional knowledge. Reed houses built using techniques unchanged, since Sumerian times prove more environmentally sustainable than concrete construction. Traditional boat designs navigate shallow waters more efficiently than modern vessels. The climate crisis forces a new respect for ancient wisdom. Technologies that sustained civilization for millennia in a challenging environment offer alternatives to unsustainable modern practices. The past becomes not just heritage to preserve, but a guide for the future. Baghdad, 2025 CE. In a technology incubator built in the heart of old Baghdad, young Iraqi programmers work on projects that would amaze their ancient predecessors. They're creating virtual reality experiences that let users walk through reconstructed Babylon, artificial intelligence systems that can read damaged cuneiform tablets, and blockchain networks that could revolutionize Middle Eastern trade. Zainab Hassan, a 25-year-old computer scientist whose family traces its ancestry to ancient Babylon, leads a team developing educational software about Mesopotamian history. "We're the heirs of the people who invented writing," she says with pride. "Now we're reinventing how knowledge is preserved and shared." Her team's latest project uses augmented reality to overlay ancient Babylon onto modern Baghdad, allowing users to see how the ancient city looked while standing in the same locations today. Walking through downtown Baghdad with the app, users can see Nebuchadnezzar's palace rising above modern buildings, watch virtual processions along the ancient processional way. This represents more than just technology. It's cultural reclamation. For too long, Iraq's ancient heritage has been interpreted primarily by foreign archaeologists and scholars. Now Iraqis themselves are taking control of their narrative, using cutting-edge technology to tell their own stories. The government has announced plans to make Iraq a regional technology hub, leveraging the country's educated population and cultural heritage. Silicon Sumer, a tech park planned for a site near ancient Uruk, aims to attract international investment while celebrating local heritage. But the most important development may be generational. Young Iraqis who grew up during years of conflict are determined to build a better future. They see their ancient heritage not as a burden of the past, but as inspiration for tomorrow. The same creativity that produced the world's first cities, first laws, first literature now focuses on creating the next chapter of human progress. As we near the end of our journey through time, it's worth reflecting on what modern life owes to ancient Mesopotamia. The impact is so fundamental that we often don't notice it, like the air we breathe or the ground we walk on. Every time you check the time, you're using mathematics developed in ancient Babylon. The 60-minute hour, the 360-degree circle, the 7-day week, all Mesopotamian innovations. When you read a book, you're using an invention that began with Sumerian scribes scratching marks in clay. When you follow laws or vote in elections, you're participating in concepts first developed in ancient city-states. The very idea of civilization, that humans can live together in large, complex societies governed by rules rather than kinship, was pioneered in Mesopotamia. The wheel, the plow, the sailboat, the calendar, the map, the school, the hospital, the court of law, all emerged first in the land between the rivers. But perhaps more important than any specific invention is a way of thinking that Mesopotamians bequeathed to humanity, the belief that human problems have human solutions, that careful observation and record-keeping can lead to progress, that the future can be better than the present through human effort and ingenuity. When Sumerian farmers first diverted river water to irrigate their fields, they established the principle that humans don't have to accept their environment as it is. They can shape it to meet their needs. When Babylonian astronomers mapped the movements of planets, they demonstrated that the universe operates according to discoverable laws. When Assyrian administrators created the first efficient bureaucracy, they showed that large-scale human cooperation is possible. These weren't just practical achievements. They were fundamental shifts in human consciousness. Before Mesopotamia, humans were hunter-gatherers living in small bands, subject to the whims of nature and chance. After Mesopotamia, humans had a model for building something greater than themselves: civilization. As our journey through 5 millennia comes to an end, we return to where we began, the land between two rivers, where humanity first dared to dream of something greater than survival. Today you can still visit these ancient places. In southern Iraq, the ziggurat of Uruk rises from the desert like a man-made mountain, its mud brick core still solid after 4,000 years. Babylon's ruins stretch for miles, layers of history visible in cross-section where archaeologists have dug. The modern cities of Baghdad, Basra, and Mosul sit atop ancient settlements, their foundations literally built on the achievements of their predecessors. But Mesopotamia's true legacy isn't in ruins or museums, it's in the way we live today. Every city is an echo of ancient Uruk. Every school traces its lineage to Sumerian temple schools. Every law code builds upon principles first established by Hammurabi. Every written word is descended from marks made in Mesopotamian clay. The same human drives that built the first cities continue to shape our world. The desire to create something lasting, to organize complex societies, to understand the universe around us, to leave something behind for future generations. The same challenges that faced ancient kingdoms, managing diversity, balancing competing interests, adapting to environmental change, dealing with external pressures, occupy modern nations. In many ways, we're still living in the world that ancient Mesopotamians created. They gave us the tools, writing, law, urban planning, administrative systems that make complex civilization possible. They showed us that humans don't have to accept things as they are, that we can work together to build something better. As you drift off to sleep tonight, remember that you're part of an unbroken chain stretching back to those first city builders in ancient Sumer. Their blood may flow in your veins, but more importantly, their ideas flow through your mind. Their dreams of human progress, of civilization, of a better future. These dreams live on in each of us. The story of Mesopotamia isn't ancient history. It's the ongoing story of human civilization, and you lying there in the darkness are its next chapter waiting to be written. The rivers still flow. The desert still stretches to the horizon, and somewhere in the night, the echoes of humanity's first great experiment in civilization whisper across the centuries. This is what we built. This is what we dreamed. This is what we pass on to you. Sleep well, heir to the ancients. Dream of cities that touch the sky, of wisdom preserved in clay and stone, of the endless human journey from the first mud hut beside the river to whatever marvels tomorrow may bring. And so we reach the end of our journey through time. From the first Sumerian cities to the digital dreams of modern Iraq, we've witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of writing, the creation of law, the flowering of art and literature, and the eternal human struggle to build something greater than ourselves. If this story of humanity's first civilization has moved you, if it's given you new appreciation for the ancient roots of our modern world, if it's helped you understand how much we owe to those first brave souls who decided to plant seeds instead of following herds, then it has served its purpose. The next time you see a wheel turning, remember ancient Sumer. The next time you read a book, think of cuneiform tablets. The next time you follow a law or participate in government, recall that these concepts were born in the land between two rivers. We are all children of Mesopotamia, inheritors of a 5,000-year-old experiment in human civilization. The story isn't over. It continues in each of us, in the cities we build, the words we write, the dreams we dream. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What aspect of ancient Mesopotamian civilization fascinated you most? How do you see their legacy in your own life? Your thoughts and insights make these stories richer for everyone. Until next time, sweet dreams, and remember, you carry within you the hopes and dreams of humanity's first civilizations.